All right.
Okay.
So if smallpox is done, then can we have similar hopes for this one?
No, because
damn. Okay. Next question.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's the problem is that it's these coronaviruses, which this is one of, are very, very common. You can't really eliminate them, and it's going to end up being endemic, meaning around all the time. It may well get mixed. The vaccine for this may well get mixed into the annual flu shots that we get, and that's that. We'll control it, but I don't think we're going to stop it.
But more, isn't it true? Equally as important is that humans, Homo sapiens, were the only victim of smallpox. So if you get rid of smallpox, it's not jumping to you from a bat or from some other creature that we handle.
That is correct.
Okay, so smallpox was unique in that way. Now, if you're going to have species-jumping viruses, it's not clear that you would ever be able to stamp them out entirely at all.
Correct. And then you have also the so-called variants or mutations that we're confronting, where you have a little bit of a change in the makeup of the virus that causes it to have different characteristics or less sensitive to the vaccines and so on. So this is going to be around for a while, but I think we'll learn to live with it and we'll adapt to it. But it's not going away like smallpox.
Yeah, and like you said, if it's a part of every season's cocktail, then we're good to go. All right.
Yeah, we are.
All right.
Hopefully.
All right, Chuck, next question. Excellent.
Okay, let's go to Tovi Sonnenberg, who says, hello from New Jersey. We're so sorry for you.
I know. I just thought. but first of all, Chuck lives in New Jersey, so that's a joke.
That's why I could say it's a joke.
You could say it's a joke, but also just the way you said that, I was ready for it to be from a really exotic place. It's like Tovi from,
exactly
from Tasmania. No, from New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Tovi says this. Why couldn't Pfizer and Moderna start using standard vaccine techniques for COVID-19? Why was it necessary to use the RNA vaccine?
Yeah, so Ern, wouldn't it have been easier just to denature the virus we already know is in the house? Why is one faster than the other?
Well, maybe, but the mRNA technique is really quick and it's very effective, and you're not fooling around putting live or attenuated vaccines, viruses into people. Right. So there are a lot of advantages, even now, because we're seeing all these variants and mutations. We're worried about them being more infective and maybe more lethal. You can make very rapidly a booster shot. Let's say, in fact, Moderna is, as we speak, working on booster shots that will specifically address these new variants. Otherwise, we would have had to start fresh in a very different and much more prolonged process to get the protection if we were using the old techniques.
Irwin, you used a word, infective. Is that the same thing as contagious?
It is. In the context of how we're talking about, yes.
That's the same thing. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay.
So is it also not true that, because a lot of people are somewhat concerned that this technology, if you will call it, this advancement was rushed. But is it not true that this has been in the works for quite some time because of some people after the SARS outbreak saw the opportunity to make these advancements, and through these hedge fund investments started working on this years ago? So it's not like last February they started working on this mRNA technology.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. And like we were just talking about before, Chuck, it's actually started, as you just reminded us, after the initial SARS pandemic. And we had a real running start getting prepared to rapidly develop the vaccines that are confronting the SARS-CoV-2 virus.
And that's a dimension of this entire landscape that I think is unrecognized or unappreciated. That it was a running start up to the starting line. Yeah. All right, Chuck, keep it coming. Give me more.
All right, let's keep going.
I love these.
Let's go with Fernando Gomes. or Gomez, I'm not sure. He says, why do our policy...
So, Chuck, give me more. I've got time for a couple more before this segment ends.
Okay, here we go. This is Woody. Woody doesn't give us anything except he's Woody.
Okay.
And he says, what level of efficacy would different groups have receiving the first round of vaccines? How does preventing spreaders like youth compare to protecting the vulnerable like oldies? Shout out to Australia's CoronaCast for the idea.
Wait. So is it okay?
I don't think I followed.
Are those two different questions? Like one of them is, what is the? Let me split that. What is the efficacy of the very first round of experiments that are conducted? Right. If you're going to say it's safe for me because you experimented on some other humans, what is that about?
So I think what he's asking is exactly what you just said, but he wants to use the first round as a means of comparing and contrasting the efficacy between the elderly and young people instead of just trying to protect certain people.
Yeah. So let me say. So first of all, the long history of medical research and the use of human subjects was originally about the subjects being, middle class, middle-aged white males. And many, many experiments to figure out what drugs work and so on were done with that very narrow group. And then people started to say, well, what about women? What about African Americans? What about children? And I think our understanding of if you're going to do a broad-based full population vaccine, for example, you can't say that if you gave it to 10,000 white guys, that'll definitely, middle-aged white guys, that'll definitely be effective in older people or African Americans or kids.
So the more demographics that you have to address, the bigger that original sample has to be.
Exactly right. And so when people say, are we going to give the vaccine to children, for instance? And Dr. Fauci recently said, we'll probably in the fall, we'll be starting to give it to children as young as 6 years of age, which is probably fine. But then they're going to have to, before that, give a lot of young children the vaccine to make sure it's safe and effective, which is ethically a little tough, as you can imagine.
Right, because plus the child is not, unlike an adult, a child is not entirely accountable for having received the trial dose of vaccine in the first place.
Right. Nobody could give you a trial of anything without your permission and without getting a whole lot of explanation of the risks and the benefits, et cetera. But what is it that you're supposed to say to a 7-year-old to make that person, comfortable or have the ability to give approval?
Right. So it's just guardian.
So easy. So easy. Here's some cookies and some juice. And the answer will be yes.
Or it's a candy. Put it in a candy. No.
Here's a lollipop. Okay, I'll take it.
We're going to take a quick break, our final break. And when we return...
Shout out to the following on Patreon.
Chuck, we're in question mode for Irwin Redlener. Let's give me some more.
All right, let's keep it moving. Let's go with Roman Prekop, who says, "Hi, doctors." Okay, well, thanks for leaving me out.
Did you feel that as a diss, Chuck?
No, I mean, I'm the only one that's not a doctor here.
He could have said, "Hell, doctors plus Chuck." He could have said that.
Yeah, he could have said, "What's up?" All right,
Neil,
anyway,
we're finally getting our due, Neil. This is sorry, Chuck.
All right,
we trained hard for this moment.
All right.
All right. He says, "Hi, doctors. Do the current vaccines really decrease the spreading?
Ooh.
Or just make the symptoms less severe?"
Yeah. So the vaccine people, are they spreaders and they don't get it? What?
They might be. And unfortunately, we didn't set up the trials well enough to know, or appropriately enough to know the answer to that question. But what we do know is that they're very effective in preventing disease, serious disease, and hospitalizations. All of them are, including the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which will be out in a month or so. So that's what we know. And The degree of spreading, unclear.
It's unknown. It's pure and simple. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So that would mean you could be a carrier with no symptoms, is what that comes down to.
You could be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Keep it going, Chuck.
All right, let's keep it going. Sam Couch would like to know this. What makes certain vaccines have the requirement of being stored under super cold temperatures?
Oh, I love that question.
While others have no issue being stored close to room temperature.
Irwin, I was looking at the temperature for the Pfizer vaccine, 70 below zero. Come on now.
90.
No, excuse me. 90
70,
below.
70, you'll ruin the vaccine. Neil, you can't do that. 90,
so you're not going to have the corner vaccine dispenser doing this. This is going to have to only be in major institutions and hospitals that have freezers that low.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, what's up with that?
So Pfizer requires about minus 90 Fahrenheit. Moderna about minus 5. The new Johnson & Johnson single dose vaccine will be able to be stored for 3 months in a regular refrigerator.
Wow. Which
is an amazing advance. And even though the J&J vaccine is said to be less effective, it still is an incredible vaccine when it comes to preventing serious illness and hospitalizations. But the big problem here, really the big problem, is the global impact of trying to deal with vaccines that need this sort of Arctic temperature for containment and storage. So we will not be able to use the Pfizer vaccine, for example, in many, many developing countries where it's called the cold chain. That cold chain capacity does not exist.
So it may be that your less effective vaccine, which stays preserved in a refrigerator, will in fact be the most effective force fighting
Absolutely.
COVID, because that will have the widest distribution.
Right. And by the way, if we don't address COVID-19 in every single country on earth, it really will affect our ability to get this virus under control in general. So we can't say, oh, we're doing great in the US and in, 90 other countries, we're not doing so great, because those will become pockets for infecting, mutating, and causing resurgence of the COVID-19 disease. So we have a lot of global work to do, which is why the J&J vaccine is so critically important part of our armamentarium.
That's the first positive thing I've heard about it. So it's good to realize this.
Yeah, I would take it for sure.
Yeah, in fact, on late night, comedians were poking fun of. They were third in the list, and it's the 50% rather than 95%, and so it didn't look good. It's like the laggard student in your class, Yeah,
except that it doesn't have to be stored at moon-like temperatures.
All right, give me some more, Chuck.
Here we go. This is Matthew Power. I love it. Matt
we
Power
should collect all
this.
the names that would be great superheroes from our fans.
I know.
Yeah.
It would be, So Matt Power wants to know this. He says, hello, Dr. Redlener, Dr. Tyson. It's my understanding that at least two vaccines by different companies are on the market. Are these vaccines basically the same thing? Are they so different that it makes a difference?
Is he talking about, you think, the J&J versus the Pfizer?
I know
Moderna?
we just...
No, I guess how about just the two RNA ones?
He's talking about the two that are pretty much the same. So that's Moderna and...
Pfizer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough difference to talk about with those. I've been vaccinated. My wife's been vaccinated at the same place. She got Pfizer. I got Moderna. They're close enough in the way they function. We're very confident in the results and the safety of both of them. There are some differences in how they're manufactured, which account for why they require different temperatures for storage. Like I said, minus 90 for Pfizer, minus 5 for Moderna. But, if you're worrying about which to get, don't worry about it. Take whatever's available.
Get it.
That's
get
the lesson. That's the lesson.
Get what you got.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Get what you get. Right. Okay.
All right.
This is Mike Bertruccio. Mike Bertruccio wants to know this. Hello. what advancements to vaccines in general were developed for the COVID-19 vaccine? Do you anticipate that we'll see new vaccines coming onto the market for other diseases?
I like that. Yeah. So was this a leap in any way, Irwin?
It was definitely a leap. But again, I think we should mention once again that this was not a leap that happened, a year ago. This is a leap that started happening. The leaping began at least as far back as 2003, when people were looking at new mechanisms for developing vaccines and came up with this so-called mRNA technique.
But also in the last 20 years, there's been great advancements in medical tools and technology to even accomplish this. Isn't that correct?
Yes, no question about it.
Okay.
And and this advancement is occurring nonstop, and we will certainly be getting things that we can't even imagine now. This is one of the things, the beauty of looking into the future, is that the research and the developments, the innovation doesn't stop like in other areas of science. This is an iterative process. We learned this last year. Wait, what if we modify it this way? What will we get? Or what if we have a whole new vision of how to make a vaccine? And that's what's happening. And by the way, I want to say one other word that's really important to the discussion of vaccines. The new tool that we'll have in our toolbox will be medications that you can take as an outpatient if you have the early signs of COVID and you test positive for it, where the doctor can prescribe a new medication you take by mouth and you're done with it. So that the combination of the vaccines, as they get more effective and more distributed, and new medications to actually treat the early forms of disease is what's going to allow us to gain control over this terrible pandemic. And that's the light at the end of the tunnel, really, both of these things.
Cool. Very cool. So you do have something positive to say, Mr. Disaster Preparedness person. Okay.
I do. One of the radio shows that I'm on a lot, Stephanie Miller show, they call me Dr. Doom.
Dr. Doom. There you go.
Which is, well, anyway, no comment. Okay.
All right. Keep going, Chuck. We got time for like 2 more questions. Go.
All right. Let's go to Josh V. Josh V says
he don't trust you with his last name. That's why he just
I know he's just clearly just one more person who knows.
I am not trusting Chuck.
I don't blame him. All right. Josh V says this. I read a lot about herd immunity and the numbers of immune people needed to defeat the virus.
Yeah.
Is there clarity on what percentage of the population needs to be vaccinated to actually achieve herd immunity?
And Irwin, isn't that dependent on how close we ever are to each other on average? Isn't herd immunity different for rural and than it is for urban?
Not so much. When we talk about whole populations, really. So in any community, we'll need to get a certain number of people who've either had the disease or who are vaccinated with an appropriate immune response. So that number was once thought to be 65 to 70% of the population that had to have the immunity. It's now well into the 85, 90% that must have it. And that's a hard row here to hoe here. And we're going to see what happens, but it's a lot higher number or percentage than we thought.
So the point is, so the way that herd immunity works then, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're 1 in 10 that has the disease, but 9 of us can't get it because we're vaccinated, so you're not going to spread it. And so what are the chances of you finding someone else who is 1 in 10? Well, that's sufficiently low.
Correct.
That even if you do spread it, that person has to have sufficiently low likelihood of something happen as well. So it rapidly tamps down back to 0.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
All right. So that's just trying to think that
through.
So
one of the, I know we're running out of time, but I just want to follow that up with when you said, what you said initially was enough people either have to be vaccinated or get the disease. So with that in mind, we are now seeing some cases, I don't know if they're isolated or not, but we're seeing some cases of reinfection.
Yeah.
Does that change the whole prospect of herd immunity?
Yeah.
No, well, the thing of it is a tiny number of cases or reinfected cases. And, there's this weird thing happening that people have had the disease documented and presumably have the antibodies to SARS-CoV-2 are still getting vaccinated. So my son, by the way, who had documented COVID-19 in March, last March, recovered, had antibodies. His doctors wanted to get the vaccine, which he's getting.
Okay.
So small chance, but really small.
Okay.
Chuck, we got 30 seconds. Give me something.
Okay. Hello, Neil. Hello, Dr. Redlener. As the virus continues to mutate and become more immune to vaccine, that's an assumption he's making. How often do you think we'd have to vaccinate to maintain life from all the mutations of COVID?
Ooh, I like that.
Oh, look at that.
I do too, but we don't know. We don't know. Sorry. Who wants to end this segment with, I don't know?
No, I got another way to come in on that. But just to shed a little bit of light on that, are you saying there's not something sufficiently in common with all of the mutations that by attacking that thing they have in common, it'll get any mutation that could ever take place? You're telling me you're not in that situation?
No, we're not in that situation.
Damn. I thought you guys were like...
The South Africa version is like, dangerous and maybe more lethal than other ones. It's a work in progress. And viruses are smart. They're wily. They'll figure out a way around whatever we put there. So we have to be very careful and very diligent in addressing it.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Well,
So you could you end up making a super virus by trying to attack a virus?
A super virus by attacking virus. All I'm telling you is that viruses mutate like crazy. And we got new mutations, by the way, in the United States right now. And we just have to stay ahead of it. This is why we have to get everyone vaccinated as quickly as possible so that the mutations don't run wild, Chuck.
Right, because the more viruses there are out there, the more opportunity there is to mutate. So you want to take that down.
So the idea is we all have to do what we're supposed to do, which is our part in getting vaccinated.
Yes.
And if you're not vaccinated, then you have to do your part by washing your hands and wearing your mask. And then after you get vaccinated, you still got to wash your hands and wear your mask and all that. So basically, everybody's responsible.
Life is cruel.
Yeah, life is cruel. Damn.
So I just want to sort of conclude by noting that I think something needs to be updated in our educational system for people to recognize that anything that's scientifically new will have uncertainties. But the best access to what is good for you will not come from people who are not the scientists. All right. The scientists will find out on that frontier what is working, what is not. And if at any given moment you got to jump in, you can jump in. But if things change, it doesn't mean the scientists don't know what the hell they're talking about. It means at that time, that was the known understanding. And that comes with a risk. So the press generally doesn't talk about that risk. They just say the scientists don't know anything. And that is because it hasn't been taught in a way where people can understand the actual undulating, moving frontier of discovery. And so I applaud your candor when you said, we don't know yet whether after your vaccine, if you can spread it. We don't know. That is so important. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of this is how the science works. And stay
Neil,
with me on that.
This is what you've been teaching everybody forever, which is that this is the beauty of science. We learn this. There's more to learn. We keep learning. It's constant exploration.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing. And that's what we have to teach in school. This is how we know and learn to know.
We got it. So finally, we got Irwin to end on a positive note.
There you go. That's right. And I'm encouraged because if not knowing makes science beautiful, then I'm the most beautiful scientist there is.
All right,
Great.
Chuck.
I'll quote you.
Yeah, well, I all got to quote Chuck on that one. All right, Irwin, always good to have you. Thanks for being a friend of the show.
Thanks, guys.
Chuck, I love you.
Love you too, man.
All right, Neil deGrasse Tyson here, concluding our episode of the COVID-19 vaccine. As always, I bid you to keep looking up.